Hello and welcome back to El Pozo, the Primera Ref show, where we take you down to the third tier of Spanish football to look back at an entire weekend of fantastic, brilliant football. Liam, I'm delighted to be back in El Pozo. It's been a 2-week hiatus for me. I am eager to get talking about some third tier football, which you got to watch this weekend in the flesh. Did you have a good time?
An absolutely brilliant time, Nick. Went to Tarazona on the Saturday. Fantastic time there. And then an equally brilliant time, and moved across to Guadalajara on the Sunday afternoon. It's all captured on Futbol in Directo, which will be out later on in the week. But yeah, fantastic couple of experiences for me in those two places, and so many thanks as always to the people behind the scenes at those two clubs, who again were just so welcoming and so keen to support us and what we're doing. It was really lovely to see firsthand.
Yeah, proper football clubs as well. Proper like community football clubs too, which you always like to see. And must have been a hell of a drive from Tarazona as well, because I think that's a fair stretch out into Aragon from Madrid, where I assume you landed. But I cannot wait to listen to your El Pozo in Directo to see how it was in on the day. Speaking of brilliant little community clubs, Liam, one has had a bit of a weird season off the pitch, and that is the Galician club Arenteiro. They were taken over, or should I say taken over with air quotes on a podcast, by Alejandro Arribas. He came in, appointed his son as the coach. He appointed a sporting director. And then what happened? It just all went a bit left field, didn't it?
Yeah, it's a weird one, this, isn't it? I never quite understood it because we do have the situation, or how the situation where Real Murcia and Cartagena were effectively owned by the same person, but it was a little bit more subtle, shall we say, in terms of that, a little bit more subterfuge involved in that being allowed. It seemed quite clear to me that Alejandro Arribas wanted to take over Arenteiro, and he even appointed his son as coach, Jesus. He appointed the sporting director, Joan Farias, as well, and then decided he quite fancied buying Cartagena instead, which obviously presumably left the people at Arenteiro thinking, well, we stuck with your choice of coach, your son, and your sporting director. And Jesus Arribas duly lost his job before Christmas when things weren't going so well. And now the sporting director's left as well. So really strange situation there. And moving on from that particular club to Arribas and Cartagena, his preferred choice in the end. We had quite a bizarre going on, didn't we, down in Cartagena this last week.
Yeah, chaos seems to follow this man around like a bad odor. So obviously, Javi Rey was a manager installed at Cartagena at the beginning of the season. Obviously, reached the playoffs last season with Ponfe, was relieved of his duties in January. And it took them a while to get round to appointing somebody new, a little bit longer than many would expect for the Primera Ref level. Usually it's a matter of days rather than weeks. However, they did settle on Federico Arias, who was, I think, a youth team manager and a bit of experience in his native Argentina as a coach. But essentially, it turns out or transpires that he didn't have the correct paperwork or coaching badges to actually take the job on. So there was a quick withdrawal. And I think the excuse, Liam, that they had was we didn't agree to this, even though there was a full announcement, wasn't there? We didn't agree to this and we rescinded it. And they've since decided to go with Inigo Velez, who was a very successful coach with Amor Vieta a few years ago. Less so with the likes of Lugo Ponfe and Record of Huelva recently, Liam, but still quite a decent manager for this level.
Yeah, I think so. I think we'll talk about how we got on in his first game later on, won't we? But yeah, I think you can't overlook that success at Amor Vieta, a very small side who made it up to Segunda under his guidance. So yeah, coaches are like that, aren't they? Sometimes wrong fit at the wrong club. He's had 3 wrong fits now, so he's running out of time to get it right, I would suggest. But yeah, he's certainly got some pedigree at this level, as we've seen, as you say, in Amor Vieta. So be interested to see how that works out for him. And he's certainly got more of a chance, I think, of some success than Arias had. Quite a bizarre decision that was. And how on earth they didn't investigate in advance whether he had what was required, I do not know. It's a very, very strange situation. As you say, maybe it's the Arribas effect taking hold again. A club which seems to be a lot more in order and on the up, both on and off the field, announced some fairly exciting developments in their training facilities this week, didn't they, Merida?
Yeah, they did, and I think we've kind of been expecting something like this to happen, haven't we, Liam? Because we know that Merida being a part of the same group as Brentford, and obviously the owner with Matthew Benham and the chairman Cliff Crown, they've unveiled plans for a sports city in Extremadura. Basically, 2 grass pitches, artificial, brand new gyms, changing rooms. A place to do Visio reviews, analysis. It's very high tech for Primera F, I must say, Liam, considering that the level they're at. But again, a pretty decent investment into the football stadium there and into the football facilities.
Very much so. I think we expected this, didn't we? I think that the early noises from Merida last summer and the people when they took over last summer, obviously, as you say, Matthew Benham behind it all, and we're not just going to look at spending all our money on making this team fantastic. We're also going to look at the infrastructure of the club, which was clearly seriously lacking in terms of even really Primera F level for a club of their size. The facilities were not brilliant. This is an amazing facility. And of course, you build amazing facilities, then when you try and attract players, they are going to want to be involved with that, aren't they? So yeah, it seems like a really exciting time for them. And they've had the added bonus, haven't they, of being given quite a substantial figure towards that development by the city council, which always goes down well, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think to be fair to the region of Extremadura as well, they're doing a lot to invest in their football infrastructure. As of late, we look at the improvements that were made to the Estadio Príncipe Felipe down at Cartagena when they were promoted, and I think they've done similar stuff with Extremadura 1924 as well. So fair cop, it is kind of like the forgotten frontier of Spain to a certain extent, but they're certainly looking to invest in their football interest to attract the best players to that corner of Spain. We were speaking about managers, and obviously the new manager, Inigo Velez, as we'll talk about, picked up a win this weekend away to Real Murcia. In the last hour before we started recording, we have had some movement. The 22nd sacking I count, Liam, at this level this season. Colunga ball is over, and I am very, very sad about this.
Yeah, I mean, Adrian Colunga started so well, didn't he, at Real Murcia, but he's really hit the skids in recent weeks. It just isn't working at all. They've got a very talented squad there that are seriously underperforming, and eventually, with the expectations as high as they are in that city, you can't survive the period of time he's gone without a win, basically, can you? I think he's 5 games without a win, and he didn't score in the first 4 of those. So, it's not good. And they brought in somebody called Curo Torres, who is a former player. However, but, Nick?
Yes, he as a football player, you cannot fault him. He's a La Liga winner when he was with Valencia during the Benitez era. But as a manager, he hasn't got a great track record in Spain. He's averaged around 6 months in roles of the like of Lorca, Cordoba, Lugo, and last appeared on these shores with Cultural Leonesa in the first season of Primera F. However, we can't judge a book by its cover. We've said this about, Inigo Velez, about his success he had with Amorebieta. He has been a multiple trophy winner in 2024, winning the league. He's won domestic trophies. He's appeared in the European competitions with this club. And it is Levadia of Estonia. So, again, it's a bit of a backwater, maybe some might consider. But silverware is silverware, Liam, and it's good credentials. And like you say, it can only get better for Real Murcia if he can get it right.
Yeah, let's wait and see. They've got a seriously good squad of players, as you said, and they should be much nearer to the top than the bottom. At the moment, they're really struggling, and that division, of course, is very tight, but they are much nearer relegation than they are to the top 5 at the moment. So, yeah, it's unthinkable that they could go down, and they need to get this sorted quickly, and maybe Curo Torres is the man to make that happen.
Yes, absolutely. But again, unusually, given the stability of Real Murcia in the last few seasons, the fact that they've had now 3 managers in one season is very, very unusual for a club of that size. But as we'll get on to shortly, they are a club that probably deserve the opportunity to be fighting at the other end of the table, certainly for promotion, because they are a massive, massive club for this level. Should we start talking about some football games that we saw this weekend with the ones to watch, Liam?
Yeah, let's start with Pontevedra 1, Lugo 1. That was, I think I took responsibility for the Grupo Dos games. If you'd like to tell us a little bit about the games that Tom chose. This was his first choice, I believe. The another game which can be billed as a Galician derby, because there's plenty of sides in that part of the world, and therefore we do get quite a few Galician derbies. Pontevedra initially impressive.
Yeah, I think they started really well, and like say, started with some bite. They were very fast up with their build-up play, and really didn't allow Lugo to execute much of their game plan, which I think is always the case with Pontevedra at the Estadio de Pasaron. Very easy to watch. Abba the Lender missed a glaring chance from across from Alberto Gil, who's having a great time, Liam, in Galicia since arriving from Depor. And I think it was really, really interesting how
we should add here.
Oh yes, not to be confused with the Depor of Galicia.
We're not talking about Deportivo La Coruña here, but you're absolutely right. He wasn't really getting a look in, was he, at Guadalajara, and they're not doing very well. So ultimately that was a little bit of a surprise. When he went straight into the starting line with Pontevedra. But yeah, you're absolutely right. He's doing brilliantly.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, I think it was a matter that we've seen Pontevedra do a lot this season. They seem to grow into games. But let's not forget this Lugo side are very, very difficult to break down. So not much to report on the front foot with goals in the first half. Then into the second half, Liam, we started to see a bit more action, didn't we?
We did indeed, yeah. I think this is kind of a recurrent theme. The more I watch Primera Ref, the more I talk to people involved with it. The old FES appeals and everything. It seems to be increasingly. And one of the games I was at this weekend, Juan V. Peinado, I had the pleasure of going to his press conference afterwards, and he was very eloquent on the matter. But it seems increasingly that even with the FS appeals, when there's a strong claim for a penalty, it's very rarely given, isn't it? And Diego Gomez here seemed to have a good case, but yeah, nothing happening. Having said that, FES very rarely changes anything, then it did.
Yeah, absolutely. A very soft foul for the goal on this one, wasn't it? But it was a very good hit from Jacopino, like I say, to get us off the mark in this game. However, it wasn't too long before Pontevedra were back into it with Reneño goal coming out of absolutely nowhere in this one. And it's got that real derby feel to it too. I think looking at this one, Pontevedra denied at the death once again. How far back in the play do you go? It was really, really interesting to see how much they were pushing for this extra goal in, because obviously they had caught up in effect with Celta Fortuna in second place, but they have kind of drifted recently with the draws that they've had. They'll be quite disappointed with this result, won't they? I suppose Lugo will be happier with the away point.
Yeah, I think the point about this disallowed goal is a question of there is somebody's offside, and this is the problem with the officials now letting the play sort of play out before they put their flag up. So the assistant referee does raise his flag for offside. There is an offside in the play, but it happens quite a long time before the ball eventually ends up in the net. So a different kind of way of disallowing a last-minute goal for Pontevedra. We saw in a couple of weekends ago against Real Madrid Castilla, which was very, very dubious. This one is also, for me, very dubious because such a lot of time elapses between the initial offside. And in fact, I think Lugo try and clear it. And for me, as soon as they try and clear it, is the previous phase not over? And so this is a new phase of play. So that offside, which is probably 15, 20 seconds before the goal was scored, should it be involved? Should it be part of the decision? I mean, to be honest, in that situation, somebody that near the goal area, I'd just like to see the assistant referee put his flag up straight away. And then we'll be done with this, because right now in this situation, they do feel that so much time has elapsed between the initial offside and the ball going back on the net. It's not really relevant, and the officials thought otherwise, and they were denied at the death again. And yeah, as you say, that's 4 points that have gone begging at home that they would feel they should have had, and that would put them a whole lot closer to Celta Fortuna. I suppose all you could say is, does it really matter right now? Because Tenerife are 9 points clear of Celta Fortuna, so finishing second or third isn't going to make a massive difference. But yeah, still, Pontevedra are going to have a blip at some point, you would think, and go on a bit of a winless run. And so therefore, to draw 2 games at home that they might have won had it not been for the officials, must stick somewhat in the craw, mustn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, Liam, you look how many teams there are queuing up outside the playoffs. It'd be better for Pontevedra to make sure they keep on with that little gap they have over the likes of Merida and Bilbao Athletic for example, because I think, we're going to talk about the next team now. I think there's only 3 points between Unionistas in 11th and Merida in 5th. And again, Pontevedra are only just a couple of points ahead of the Extremadurans there too. So speaking of which, Unionistas, 3 wins out of 3, Liam. They won 2-0 at home this weekend against Arenas de Getxo. A really brilliant one.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing thing that Unionistas have been on a tear up since they got beaten 5-0 by Baracaldo at the start of the year. Just absolutely flying. Never mind 3 wins in the spin. I think it's about 5 out of 6, in fact, that they've won as well. I think they lost away at Celta Fortuna. But yeah, really impressive. We saw Cerpeta come in the transfer window. Obviously, he's another ex-Clano Deportivo player. He went to Castellón and they've loaned him out now to Unionistas. And it's his first goal for the club, and a lovely run from Aaron and Cerpeta with an easy finish to round off the good play from his teammate. So great stuff. And they thought they had a second one. Chibozo, I think that would have been his first goal. He also arrived in the winter transfer window, but it was chalked off.
Yes, you know what? And this is a player I've not really paid too much attention to. I've seen him a few times, but he is an absolutely massive unit of a player, Liam. Big, giant Benin international in the middle of the park. And I think he complements Aaron really, really well. And Alvaro Gomez, they've got a really great midfield trio, the Unionistas in there. But yeah, he's powered through, being chalked off by FES. I think it was for offside, basically, after it fell to him. But, a really great player. And, we've seen, chaps at this level who go on to play a lot better. I'm thinking of Cristiano Zucche, for example. He's got all the hallmarks of a Cristiano Zucche, so it wouldn't surprise me to see him at the end of the season maybe move on up into the Spanish Segunda potentially. He is only on loan at Unisa, so it wouldn't be a permanent move from Salamanca to elsewhere. But he's a really, really interesting handful. But pretty much half to forget for Arenas Club, Liam, who obviously aren't in great form. This is 3 losses in a row now, and things really went from bad to worse just after the hour mark when Cerpeta involved once again.
Yeah, got out in the face. Pablo Garcia ended up. I think, he had to pay the price for this. I think it was. It's difficult, isn't it? I think arms raised in anywhere on the pitch in Spain invariably means a booking at the very least, and in the box. Yeah, I think players. I mean, I like Cerpeta as a player, but I think players in Spain are very quick to hit the floor when any arm is raised anywhere near their face. I think he does get given. At least it's consistently given. To be fair, I'm not sure myself. Elbow, hand, etc. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. It was given, and Alvaro Gomez tucks it away. I really like Alvaro Gomez. You mentioned him earlier on, one of those who, when Zamora signed Abde from Unionistas, I was quite pleased because I like Unionistas. Quite pleased that Gomez stayed there, because for me he's really made a good impression this season. I'm hoping to speak to Antonio Paz, who's the sporting director at Unionistas, at some point over the next couple of weeks, record an interview with him for the show. And I'll certainly be asking you about Chibozo, because that's a heck of a pickup, isn't it? I know a lot of it's done nowadays through scouting analysis and things on various different websites. But yeah, still a tremendous job, and he does look a real handful, as you say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's recruitment from Unionistas as well. Let's not forget this is a fan-owned club, and it'd be interesting to hear their thoughts on it. But they do seem to be able to pull some pretty decent diamonds from the rough recently. We look at Gaston Vallas, who I'm sure we'll talk about later as well, giving those kind of players an opportunity. A bit of a weird finish here, Liam. It got into the 95th minute, and there was a bit of an altercation at the edge of the Arenas Club box. Zabella was booked for diving, who is the Arenas Club defender. I couldn't quite see who the Unionistas player was who gave him a bit of a shove. And it was quite a forceful one as well, it must be said. So I was expecting FES to say, actually, that booking's not right. We're going to give it the other way. But he's maintained that he's gone down and dove because he's just grabbed hold of his face and rolled around on the floor. So maybe this is the referee saying, I'm not really going to take any of your crap, if I'm honest, Isabella. You're getting booked, you're staying booked, because I don't like to see your dramatics. It was a very, very odd thing to do. But ultimately, that win, as we've mentioned, sees the Salamanca side move up to 11th in this very congested league, only 2 points off Merida for the final playoff place. Arenas Club, however, they fall to their 3rd consecutive defeat in a row and now just 3 points clear of the drop zone, currently occupied by think it's Talavera who are in that last spot, or Casareño, sorry, that are in that last spot. But again, we're starting to see very much like Grupo Dos, the Grupo Uno fixtures and placements are really starting to concertina, aren't they?
Yeah, very much so. You've got a congested middle table, as you say, and one or two of the smaller sides starting to fall towards that bottom five, which is not what we like to see. Real Avilés Industrial, I mentioned last week, have been on a bit of a dodgy run, and Arenas Club the same. So yeah, it's still very, very a lot of teams in with a chance, just behind the top five, and we'll mention a few of those in the round a bit later. On to Guadalajara 1, Orense 0. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I was at this game, an absolutely massive win for the home side. Both sides have not been in great form recently, especially Orense. I think obviously Guadalajara won their last home game before this one against the Hermanos Club de Getxo. So, that was a morale boosting victory for them. And I think in this game, it looked to me for all the world like it was going to be a 0-0. And but we did see some goal action earlier on, didn't we? And then things sort of quieted down after that.
Yeah, I think it'd be fair to say in this one, Liam, that it was Depor Guadalajara. There's so many depots that we need to get into that really did shade it in terms of, being on the front, looking to get their shots away. There was some early chances for them in the first half. A palm stinger onto the hands of Alberto Sanchez when he had to parry away a really great effort from outside the box from, I think it was from Banque. And then a penalty appeal was waved away when there was a foul on Castareño, I think it was at the time. Though, Liam, did you see what the real foul on the pitch was in this game?
I did mention that actually, and not giving too much away about my Buffon director. Yeah, there's someone in it with his bright green hair. He went off a couple minutes after that, but yeah, I'm not sure what that was all about. Not really what we like to see.
I hope you weren't sat behind him, because there must have been some glare bouncing off that one at the time. But like I say, quite a dominant game in the end for Depor, and obviously they were awarded very, very late for their endeavour when Ulate glanced home ahead in the 85th minute. Liam, I saw the limbs on the highlights as well from those fans behind the goal. Were your limbs up as well?
I was sitting in the posh part, so I did shout very loudly and then record something very excitedly on my phone. But yeah, as we always say, don't we? It's brilliant when a crucial goal is scored in front of the most ardent home fans. And this was scored down the right end from that perspective. The other end of the ground is uncovered, and about 85% of it was empty. So it would have been a bit underwhelming. So a great moment for the home fans, and totally deserved overall. And a massive 3 points for them, wasn't it?
Yes, and a brilliant cross as well from your friend and mine, David Amigo. That's a joke I'll always continue to make on this podcast. But it really does breathe a little bit of life into Guadalajara, because those two sides down at the bottom, Guadalajara and Osasuna Promesas, without these 3 points, it kind of looked like they were going to get marooned there. So it's kind of like breaking into two mini leagues, whereas this has properly put them back into the mix for survival with the rest of them, like Orense, who, they'll go into a massive, relegation 6-pointer against Arenteiro. Obviously, it's another Galician derby. I think only about 30 minutes drive between these two sides, but it's going to be a massive game for Daniel Ithera and his future going forward as well, isn't it?
Yeah, he of course has in the past liked tweets on our page and everything, hasn't he? And I was quite keen on introducing myself to him, just thanking him for supporting what we're doing. But he left the press conference with a face like thunder. He described the first half performance from his team as indigno. So just basically crap. He was incredibly negative about their first 45 minutes, and rightly so. They were very poor in the first half. They got better in the second half, and I didn't think he was going to be too keen on exchanging with me, so I might leave that one for another occasion when he's in a better situation. They are struggling, as you say, yes. and they are the team that teams will want to catch, because they're just above the bottom five, and this game, as you say, this weekend, which I think might just crop up a bit later on in our discussions, is a massive game. And Grupo Dos awaits us. There was a massive game in terms of the outcome for our friend Senor Colunga was pretty disastrous. But in terms of how many people turned up to watch us as well, Real Madrid won, Cartagena 2, 26,000 people packing into the Nuevo Condominio for this one. What an amazing figure that is, even in a part of the world where there is quite decent population density in a big stadium. That's still an amazing turnout for a derby in the third division, isn't it?
It really is, especially when you look at the positions of these two sides. If this was a first versus second, you'd expect maybe 26,000. But where they are in the league, Liam, let's put it this way: the Derbi Murciano is definitely one that's still beating in Spanish football, even though it is in the third tier at the moment. And it looked like it was getting off to the perfect start for Adrian Colunga as well, as Hol Haukira put Real Murcia in front after just 3 minutes. Some really brilliant work from Pedro Benito to get down the right-hand side and cut the ball back into the middle. And yet you thought they would look to double it as well shortly after, as they managed to come forward. A huge save from Lucho Gothi to deny Victor Naro, who has been a bit quiet since he's obviously joined. He came with a lot of pomp as a bit of a big signing for Real Murcia, but I don't think it's quite hit the heights as he would have shown at Nàstic de Tarragona. But then, as all derby games do, Liam, there is a complete spanner thrown in the works, and Yanis Romani, who obviously I know very well from his time, an absolute unstoppable goal here, wasn't it?
Yeah, smashes us in off the bar, doesn't he? But again, I think Real Murcia's defending leaves a bit to be desired there. They're hesitant. He's not the biggest, Romani, is, and he kind of muscles in ahead of a defender and smashes it home. Again, at 1-1, FES penalty appeal turned down. I've seen them given, but you very rarely see FES being successful when you make an appeal like this. I think there really is a sense amongst coaches that penalty decisions are not the sort of thing that, on the whole, referees are prepared to change their mind about when you refer. And in fact, Peinado said there were 2 penalty appeals for the game for Deportivo Guadalajara on Sunday, and Peinado said the second one, he said, I thought it was a waste of time. I thought basically we're just wasting time. He's not going to give it. He wasn't saying in a particularly critical way. He just said, don't forget, he's not been in the category very long. My observation is that referees don't often give penalties if they haven't given them initially, and I just thought we should play on. He said, but my boys were yelling at me. They were screaming at me to play the card, so I played it anyway. And of course, he didn't give a penalty. So, really, really interesting. And we saw a couple of them in this game for Real Murcia, neither of them given. We had a really strong claim for a penalty from Cartagena, and I suspect that wouldn't be given either. But it didn't matter because Neil Jimenez smashed home the loose ball to make it 2-1. And that was it, basically. And a situation where Real Murcia now find themselves just 3 points above Juventud de Torremolinos, who are in the relegation zone. And Juventud de Torremolinos have a midweek game against Teruel, one of those rearranged games after the storm a couple of weeks ago. So they could essentially be joint fifth bottom, and that's just not good enough, is it? And that is, of course, why Colunga has lost his job.
Grupo Dos this season, isn't it, Liam? It's that close and it's that congested that anything could happen. But I think teams panic, don't they? And I think clubs as big as Real Murcia really, really seriously panic when they edge towards that 5 that go down, because the risks it's too big, isn't it? It's too big to gamble on your future by sticking with them.
Yeah, I think so. I think that is the issue, isn't it? Is that they can't even contemplate going down to Segunda Ref. It's not desperately long since they've been there, but this is not a club that is looking at going backwards at this stage. They're looking to push on and be back in Segunda at the very least, and a decent run even from where they are at the moment, given the distance between 5th place and where they are now. It's perfectly possible they could get right back into the mix in the next 4 or 5 weeks, but the first thing they need to do is just start scoring some goals on a regular basis, which I never thought I'd say of a team that's got Benito and Flacos. I didn't think that would be a problem for them, but they have really struggled in front of goal recently, and we'll have to see what happens. They've got another piece of bad news coming their way, haven't they, as well, because there were some things thrown onto the pitch, that will probably lead in a partial stadium closure for their next game. So not impressed at all with that conduct from the home fans. Great turnout from them, but not the way to behave unless you want a little bit of retribution from the league for that kind of poor behaviour.
Yeah, I think a partial stadium closure is being mooted, or maybe even been sanctioned on them for that kind of behaviour. So we don't want to see, Liam. We don't want to see that at all. Antequera against Europa. How about that one for the game that kicked off on Sunday evening? 4 changes from last week. And a bit of an interesting game here, Liam, because the visitors didn't really offer a lot going forward, but they've come away here with a massive 3 points towards their title charge.
Yeah, it was. I think it was Antequera that made the 4 changes, wasn't it? And you'd expect Destiny to start because he scored last weekend, the winner away at Hércules. So no real surprises there. It's quite interesting, isn't it, that Europa have won both games 2-0, and the 4 goals have been scored by the Cano brothers, 3 by Jordi, 1 by Alex. So that didn't look like it was going to pan out that way at all, as you say. That the first 55 minutes, I thought Antequera were pretty much on top. I didn't really see much that suggested that Europa really fancied the chances of getting anything in this game other than a 0-0 draw, really. But then we've seen enough of Jordi Cano this season to know that what you definitely don't do, no matter how little attacking threat his team has shown, you definitely do not back off Jordi Cano when he's cutting in from the right-hand side. You do not give him that amount of space. It is an absolutely wonderful finish in the top corner, but they slightly brought it upon themselves, didn't they, Antequera defence?
Yeah, they really do. Like say, you don't give a player of that ability that much time to do it. And we've seen him score spectacular goals from that kind of angle and cutting back in. And it doesn't really matter. Sort of like thinking back to that looping effort he had against Villarreal Bay not too long ago as well. And like you say, this is kind of like the surprise that is Europa in terms of them. Only lost 1 in 14 games recently, Liam. That's fantastic record for a club that have come up from the Segunda Federacion. They've got obviously the travails of having to play away from their home stadium now. The new Sardinia is shut for the men's first team. They've got to play at the Estadio Candrago, but they still just keep plugging away. And Antequera have not been a bad side recently. Abrian Pass has done a fantastic job there since he's come in from his team in Gibraltar. So to go away here and pick up 3 points and go all the way back to Barcelona with those in your back pocket to close down Athletic B and Sabadell, it's a statement win for me. I think this gives them real confidence and a real belief that they could actually maybe go even further.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if they made the playoffs, it would be amazing, wouldn't it? There's no doubt about that. We had them tipped at the start of the season and fairly sure to struggle in and around the relegation zone, and they're now looking ever more capable of staying in the top 5. So a tremendous achievement, and especially because Antequera had come off that big win last weekend against Hércules and played really well for it. I mean, they're a team, Antequera don't draw, do they? They've won 7 and lost 5. So actually, if you look at that overall, 21 points from their last 12 games, and Europa have 23 from their last 14. So, it is interesting that, isn't it, that in some ways, you might as well win a few and lose a few, and you're almost as well off. But yeah, certainly a really decent result. Europa's biggest problem all season really has been their away form, and it started to pick up in recent weeks. So they can get that right as well. It also takes a little bit of pressure off them, how they need to perform in Candragó, because of course we know that they were so good in Nova Sardinia. It's pretty much impossible that they could achieve the same sort of consistency in terms of wins in a new stadium with a new surface and a new atmosphere. So they do need more points on the road, and this is a great start towards them getting them.
Yes, and from one team, Liam, that we thought was going to be struggling around the relegation zone to another, if you'd have told me that Teruel 1, Ibiza 0 would have been a scoreline in August, I would have asked you to eat your hat, because that is a fantastic result considering the resources and the chasm that sits between these two clubs in terms of what they can do. And actually on the pitch, it's a lot closer than we think.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it, really? I mean, just the one change for Teruel from the previous starting 11, it ended up being a significant one. They dropped Fonda. They brought in Hugo Redon, who is a player they brought in from Atletico Levante, so essentially Levante's B team, and he scored a beautiful goal in this game. They don't score many, Teruel, do they? I think they've only scored more than 3 times this season, but what they are very, very good at doing is holding on to leads, especially on their own patch. And they held us lead as well. As I said, beautiful goal from Redon in the first 10 minutes, I think it was. And then they protected for the rest of the game. Just so disappointing for Ibiza, who just seemed to take one step forward and then take one step back, don't they?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you were a betting man and you're looking at Ibiza's form, if you can patternise it to win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. Yeah, you might want to be thinking about betting on them this weekend if you're really into that. We also saw a return for podcast favourite Teddy. He made a 10-minute return towards the end of this game on his way back from injury. I can't say that I managed to see him myself personally, but if he was still sporting his new haircut, we hope he was, because we believe he's got an interesting new barnet, which I'm sure we can share on our social medias. Just to go around some of the other headlines, Liam, starting in Grupo Uno, so the top two both win in injury time. And to tell you what, you must be absolutely horrified if you're Arantero here. A 100-minute penalty from Gathon Valles to get the win at the Estadio Heledoro for Tenerife, and then same again for Celta Fortuna.
It was even worse. It was in Arantedo, so even worse.
Oh gosh, sorry, I thought it was at the Esplanado.
Yes, it is. Yeah, home fans thinking they've got a really decent point against the league leaders, and then hearts broken right at the end. Gutting.
Yeah, definitely. And something similar happened as well at Racing Ferrol, Celta Fortuna. Alvaro Marin, second goal of the game in the 93rd minute too, though I don't want to say it was deserved because there was a bit of an incident in this game, wasn't there? Alex Ayala with a bit of a bite on Marin just 7 minutes into there when they were already 1-0 up. Very out of character for him, and I think he has since apologised, hasn't he?
Yeah, and I mean, this is just a bizarre and completely inexplicable thing for him to do. As you say, his team were winning 1-0 with 7 minutes into the game. It is spotted. This is one of the reasons, I suppose, why FES is a good thing. Although I suppose you could probably see the teeth marks on Manin's arm, and probably the ref could have worked it out from there. But yeah, this is really, really poor from him. And as you say, the only good thing to come out of this is that he immediately came out and apologised, and he had to do that. We think about different incidents where this happened in the past in world football. We haven't always seen an instant apology, have we, from the perpetrators? And Thalaya dealt with it the only way that anyone can deal with it, which is to come out and beg forgiveness, pretty much. And let's hope that everybody can move on from that. And not nice to see. Also not nice to see Bilbao Athletic moving back into the playoff places, having beaten Zamora, who are not in a good place at the moment under Oscar Cano. And again, a team with high expectations. They need to pick it up quickly soon. Better news, though, for our favourite Icelandic centre forward in Primera F. Not that there's many to compete with him, obviously.
No, Sigurður Hallsson, Merida, obviously, he's got a big job going in there, replacing Alvaro Garcia. And I tell you what, Liam, if you see a better team goal this season than this one, I will call you a liar to your face, because this was absolutely brilliant. One-touch football in the build of the box, great cross across to Sigurður Hallsson, who was just perfectly timed his run, waiting at the back post and slots it in. Turns out to be the winner of the Derbi de Extremadura as well. Shame for Gathreño, obviously. They had 2,000 fans that have made the 40-mile journey up to Merida for this one. But ultimately, Merida get the points. They go 5th in the league, and it all just feels good at the club at the moment. Plenty of good news. Icelandic strikers going. There's a note in here that Liam and Nick need to sing the chant. I don't know if you put that in there or Tom's put that in there.
This is all about Tom, a little bit of genius. He heard a chant that they'd come up with from a Bad Bunny lyric. The lyric goes, "Por la mañana, café por la tarde, ron." We've seen quite a lot of it on social media recently. I think they had adapted it to reflect an Icelandic striker at Real Sofia there. Then the call was about essentially, can Oscarsson, I think, take us to Sevilla for what would be the final of the Copa del Rey. So Tom thought that we could perhaps use this one for Sigurður Hallsson, and it was I won't sing it because I can't sing, but yeah, it was essentially por la mañana, café por la tarde, ron, take us to Segunda, Sigurður Hallsson. I think it works perfectly. So yeah, if I ever get to Merida this season, I may try and start up a chant if I've had enough beer to see if I can get some people to follow us in that particular inspired adaptation from Mr. Morgan Chars.
Absolutely. That needs to be on a t-shirt. I reckon you'd sell quite a few of them if you took them in a suitcase to Merida. You'd certainly make some money back for your trip. On to Baracaldo as well. They beat Osuna Promesas. Osuna Promesas just looking really dire, looking kind of very severe Atletico down at the bottom of Grupo Uno. So Baracaldo now just 1 point behind Merida in that chase. As we've said, that is a really concertinaed chasing pack for those playoff positions in Grupo Uno. So all is not lost necessarily in the race for promotion in one element. And Ponferradina also joined Baracaldo in that queue. They beat Talavera 1-0 this weekend, making it 6 wins from 7 games, and also kept a clean sheet in all of them, Liam, which means your friend of mine, Andres Prieto, who I think when we started this podcast, literally this time last year, was wearing the swim cap. He's back in form.
He certainly is, yeah. 7 clean sheets in a row, all kept by him. That's a Primera Federacion record. He's now set for a number of minutes without conceding a goal. And as you say, a remarkable turnaround in Ponferradina as fortunes for this season. They're now just 2 points off 5th place. Tremendous stuff under Mehdi Nafti's guidance over the last couple of months. So just to confirm that top 5, we've mentioned, I think, already the 2 that have gone in. Merida and Bilbao Athletic have joined the top 5, and the Racing Ferrol and the Real Madrid Castilla have dropped out. The bottom 5, Guadalajara, the only team in the bottom 5 to win. They're now just 4 points from safety in theory, but the team that they're trying to catch, Orense, who they beat at the weekend, win the head-to-head 3-1 over the season. So it's actually 5 points. As we know, in Spain, it's all about the goal average. It's also about the record against the team that you're trying to catch. And if the goal average in this case is favouring Orense, then essentially it means they've got an extra point advantage over Guadalajara. But yeah, brilliant win for them. And chasing down Orense as best they can. And anybody else who wants to fall into the relegation dogfight that is just above Orense at the moment. On to Grupo Dos. A surprise home defeat in Grupo Dos. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. But a welcome one, Liam. A welcome one. As Atletico Madrileño, they were defeated 2-1 by Narcís de Tarragona. And also Sabadell were watching that game and took full advantage. They beat Atlético Zañoqueño 2-0 to go 3 points clear at the top. However, an even bigger surprise at the Banús Football Centre, Liam. It was a goal fest, wasn't it?
Certainly was, yeah. Marbella 4, Algeciras 1. Undoubtedly the biggest surprise of the weekend. Although I suppose Atletico Madrid losing their home undefeated record is pretty impressive. I never thought I'd hear you on this podcast, Nick, say you're delighted to hear Nastic win a game of football, but there you go, how things change. But yeah, 3 goals in 6 minutes in the second half for Algeciras to concede that badly. Something must have gone very wrong with their second half, and I think the key point here was that Mayorga, ex-Yaclano Deportivo, if you take a Yaclano Deportivo out your back line, basically, which they had to do because you got a second yellow card, things are always going to go badly after that, aren't they? 4-1 Marbella victory. They even missed a penalty in that second half, so an absolute thumping. I think it's one of those, isn't it? They've done so well this season, Algeciras. Just chalk it up as a bad day and point to that second yellow card as a real turning point, and make sure that if they have anyone sent off in the remainder of the season, they don't collapse as easy as they did against the Marbella side, who have been woeful all season. They are so woeful, Marbella, that as far as the bottom 5 is concerned, they're the only winners in it, but they are still 10 points in safety. The top 5 you've mentioned, that Sabadell now have a 3-point lead over Atletico Madrileño. Those are still the top 2, and just behind them, Eldense in Europa and Villarreal replace Algeciras in the top 5 on goal difference after the boys from the Nuevo Mirador had that disappointing away day to Marbella. 3 games to watch in Grupo Uno, Nick. Far away.
Yes, definitely. So the 3 games to watch in Grupo Uno this week has got to be Cartagena against Udinese. The visitors will have a massive following for this one as well. Obviously, Udinese is on fantastic form, but Cartagena still with hopes of getting themselves out of the relegation places. And then we are going to be working with 2 of the closest derbies that you'll find in Primera F. The first one in Galicia, the most local derby of all those Galician derbies. It is Orense versus Arentera Okutu. And I think there's only 15 miles between these 2 sides, Liam, which is a fantastic rivalry, and both of them in desperate need of points to get themselves back into the race for survival. And then we head to the Basque Country, where the shortest, most local derby in Primera F is Arenas Club de Getxo against Baracaldo, less than 10 miles between the 2 grounds, and that distance has been made even shorter since Arenas Club moved from Gobela to Fedora as well. So again, a massive game up there. How about in Grupo Dos?
Yeah, we have Atlético Sanluqueño against Marbella. That's 6:30 on the Saturday. I mean, you'd have to say Marbella, the fat lady singing, or at least warming up for them, but maybe she isn't. Maybe she's going to be told to pipe down. If they can beat Cardiff Bay this weekend, then you never know, do you? I think they're the more likely winners of that one. So it is a massive game, but both sides are well adrift, and so it feels like it might be Material who wins that one. We'll see in due course. Hercules against Eldense, a derby de Alicante, so to speak. Very little distance between these two sides, a big game for the home side, especially. I think Eldense fairly safely in the top 5. Hercules looking to get into it, not being that impressive in recent weeks. So it will be a big game for them to win here. Should be a cracker. That's 9 p.m. on Saturday night. And the last of all, Europa against Juventud de Torremolinos at 12 on the Sunday. Europa will fancy themselves, of course, to win this on home turf, even though it's different home turf nowadays. We'll see what happens. Juventud de Torremolinos, if they were to win their midweek game, could then get some points from this one and actually be out of the bottom 5. We're not sure about that yet, obviously, because they haven't yet played the midweek game. But it could be a big game for them. And of course, Europa need to keep up that pace because they do have a lot of teams just outside the top 5 who are trying to chase them down. There is one other midweek game as well, isn't there, Nick, that we should mention this stage, and that's Cartagena against Sevilla Atléticos. There's 2 midweek games. Both of those games were called off because of the storm a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, absolutely. And Torremolinos do like going to Barcelona, Liam. Let's not forget they were the first club to go and score against Sabadell. Could they be the first club to inflict home defeat on Europa? I imagine that'll be remains to be seen. But thank you very much for joining us for this show, Liam. Liam, your company has been a fantastic welcome return for me. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you about these games, and I'm glad to hear you had a fantastic weekend in Spain. So thank you very much for joining me.
No, absolute pleasure. And please do go and take a listen to Both in Directo in due course later on in the week. It was brilliant to record it. And great to be able to talk to both David Cubillas again and also Nesta Societa, the sporting director at Guadalajara. And as I say, coming in the next couple of weeks, hopefully, is a more in-depth chat with Antonio Paz, the sporting director at Uninis, which I'm really, really looking forward to doing. I've always wanted to talk to a sporting director at length, exactly what the job involves. And so looking forward to doing that in due course.
Sounds absolutely perfect. We're looking forward to all those things. So keep an eye on them coming out on our social medias and on our podcast feeds later this week. But for now, say thank you to you guys at home. Gracias, muchos gracias. We'll see you next time. Hasta luego.